Hi, my name is Chris Helme. Over the next few minutes I'm going to tell you a little about myself and the presentations I can bring to you and your passengers. For just over 30 years I was a police officer in West Yorkshire. I didn't reach the dizzy heights as a chief or a sergeant, but I was what our chief constable called a community constable. But to you and I, that is a role we better know as the local bobby. This was the job I had dreamt of from being a child. Yes, being the local bobby, not just in my own town of Brighouse, but in my own community and on the very estates and streets I grew up in until I joined the police back in 1970. Just over half my service was as the local bobby in Brighouse, and it is that aspect of my work that my first presentation to your passengers would be. All in a day's work. A very apt title for life as the local bobby, a job where you had to deal with everything, and I do mean everything. You were the first port of call for all local residents when they had a problem. Yes, this was work that included the everyday crime problems for a local police officer to deal with. But as the local bobby, this work also included many other things as well, many of which didn't really warrant the police being involved at all. But you are our local policeman. We want your help and advice. For example, a request to close the M62 motorway because the noise kept an elderly couple awake at night. A job for PC Helme, I think. Or having to try and sort out why some local residents had black and white pictures on their colour televisions. PC Helme will sort it out, the things you got asked to do. As the local police officer living on my patch, I lost count of the number of mothers who decided to leave home because of a bullying husband and then landing on my doorstep looking for lodgings. Or children who left because they didn't get enough spending money and wanted to live at my house. I've presented this humorous presentation throughout the county and even in a hotel in Cyprus when, just as in the UK, the expats all laughed in the same place as well. As you may have gathered, this presentation is the lighter side of policing. No nightmares after my stories, and they are all true life, everyday stories of a bobby on the beat. Stories which you could not make up, stories that will bring back memories, I am sure, of your own childhood local bobby. My second presentation is titled Other Folks' Rubbish, and I don't mean recycling. Or it could be called One Man's Rubbish is Another Man's Treasure. Have you ever given thought to the things we all put away in the loft, attic, shed or garage at home, just in case it comes in for some unknown time in the future? I think men are the worst, cutting the plug off a broken electrical appliance and keeping it. Maybe for some use in the future, it'll come in, you know. Keeping numerous part rolls of wallpaper, endless rolls of carpet, half-empty tins of paint, reserved Christmas trees, and gentlemen, we all have lengths of wood in the garage. Well, you never know, it might come in. Shoes that have gone out of fashion, but might come back in fashion one day. Gentlemen, we all do it. And of course the ladies, who often find and keep buttons, but don't have a garment to sew it on. So it goes into that button box. You know the one that has been handed down through the female line of the family, because you never know, it might come in one day. Some people still collect brown paper and string, even now, 70 years after being asked to save it during the last war. This is a presentation based on nostalgia and gives you the chance to laugh out loud, maybe at yourself. Having been interested and taught local history for over 35 years and written several books on this subject, nostalgia and local history is the key to my presentations. My third presentation takes on a more serious tone. The assassination of Lord Frederick Cavendish, Chief Secretary for Ireland, and his permanent Under-Secretary Thomas Henry Burke at the Irish Office on May the 6th, 1882 in Dublin's Phoenix Park. This was shortly after he had been sworn in as the new Chief Secretary, and the impact of what became an international incident had on a small West Riding town in Yorkshire. A story where the final chapter was played out on a ship off the coast of South Africa. A fascinating story that, as it concludes, I am sure many of you will be sat on the edge of your seat. Well, my fourth presentation is again something completely different. For 50 years I have been associated with the world of brass bands as a tuba player, administrator, writer, compere and radio programme producer and presenter. This story is an insight into the world of brass bands, and whilst telling the story of my own introduction to joining a band, and then 50 years later writing a successful book about some of the bands, players, conductors and composers from the brass band movement. And all this began when my father gave me a choice at the age of 9 to either go to Sunday school or join the band. I will also tell you the story of two of the finest cornet players of their generation from the world of brass bands, as well as play musical extracts from some of their finest performances. All these presentations and others, if required, are all designed to take 1 hour. The presentations vary from me telling a story to one with props for effect, to the use of PowerPoint presentations with images and appropriate text, and the use of music. Have I ever been on a cruise? No. I have not yet had that pleasure, but I have been delivering presentations to audiences for over 30 years and hope through the Cruise Lecturers Association to have the opportunity of both informing and entertaining your passengers in what I call infotainment. Well, that's it. I hope you have found the introduction to me and some of the presentations I can give your passengers both informative and interesting, and I do look forward to perhaps seeing you and your passengers sometime in the future. Thank you.